There'll be a meltdown due to peak oil or global warming. Whatever the reason, a lot of Kiwis are hunkering down, and a lot of outsiders are flocking here to escape the forthcoming calamity. Melanie Reid's been hunting them out.
I think we're living in an unsustainable civilization that is heading rapidly towards some sort of serious collapse.
There seems to be an increasing number of people getting ready, but getting ready for what? Well, the thinking is that the world cannot sustain human consumption at its current rate, and a global catastrophe is on its way.
They're chunky little chaps with round little bellies.
Robin Scott switched hemispheres because he wants his family to survive.
Noisy little buggers too.
He bought a block on the foothills of the Alps not far from Darfield and is well on the way to self-sufficiency. When peak oil, global warming or financial disaster hit, he reckons he'll be in the right place at the right time.
We were drawn to the South Island because of the much lower population density. You don't have to put up with Aucklanders.
Too many people up there.
Yeah, and it's too much of that whole materialist, greed, self-obsessed culture, I'm afraid, of, you know, having a big flash car and a house in Remuera. We've got friends who do that and we love them dearly, but it's just not our bag, you know.
Have you been there, done that?
Yeah, to a large extent. To a large extent, yes. I used to drive a BMW and think I was pretty flash.
Robin Scott's old life included growing up in a mansion. Education, Oxford. Owned a castle in Scotland, now the residence of Billy Connolly.
The way I've looked at it is that I got to the top of the mountain, and I kind of looked around and I decided that's not what I want in my life, right?
What was at the top of that mountain?
Well, I suppose going to very flash weekend house parties and living, you know, going to Ascot, going to Wimbledon, you know, that's kind of the British, snobbish, upper class trip. Goats are the animal equivalent of blondes. They're very beautiful, but a little bit sort of neurotic and vague.
And dizzy. There's no question Robin Scott is a colourful character, but he's also had a colourful, if not controversial, past. He was involved and fell out with a Scientologist, which led to him being deported from Denmark in the 80s. In the 90s, he grew marijuana for, he says, medicinal purposes, which landed him in jail. These days, though, it's all about his safe haven near Darfield.
We get anything up to 3 litres of milk on a good day from the two of them.
While it all may look rather tip-top, Adrienne, Robin's wife, and their 2 grown-up children consider New Zealand a kind of life raft, the best country on earth to be if it all hits the fan.
There are financial threats, there are climate threats, there are overpopulation threats, there's political instability, there are nuclear war possibilities. There's a whole gamut of serious possibilities on a planet that actually can't feed itself.
So this is your water supply?
Yes, it's a kind of a reserve water supply because
big on sustainability, Robin's produced a website and book called Fortress New Zealand, urging Kiwis to stop living like there's no tomorrow and to get real on peak oil, global warming and world economics.
In a hard-nosed way, I think we could have some rough waters up ahead. And I think
But you're saying a bit more than rough, though, aren't you?
Well, I'm certainly saying life-threatening. I'm certainly saying that survival becomes an issue, as we mentioned earlier. I think just simply staying alive could become a challenge in the future.
There will be those that say that you're barking mad.
Mm-hmm, plenty.
You're catastrophizing. There's
yes,
a name for people like you. You're a catastrophist.
Yes, yes, that's true. I think anybody who knows me well knows that I'm really a very optimistic person at heart. I always look on the bright side of life. I'm not a doom merchant, and I find myself surprised that I'm now predicting such negative potential outcomes. It just so happens that I think I may be right about this. And I know a lot of people don't want to deal with these issues. They'd rather just pretend that everything's going to be business as usual.
Robin Scott's not the only foreigner who's found the wide open spaces and mountains of the South Island an attractive proposition.
Most of the things that are accumulated try to get things that are energy intensive.
Kent Palmer has studied and built a career on biology, ecology and environmental ethics. He too thinks the writing's on the wall and is getting prepared. And you've got a lot of trees planted?
Oh, several hundreds, yep. One of the things with peak oil, one of the first things we thought of is that if we want to get anywhere, we're going to have to use a little transport, and probably not going to be able to use my little truck. So we just thought, well, bicycles are probably the most efficient kind of transportation as long as the roadways stay semi-passable. This is stock food, and mainly things. It's feed wheat. I'm sure that if times got really tough, I would be happy to eat that as well.
And what about in all these drums?
They're all canned goods and sort of things.
Just rice and pasta and stuff?
Yeah, things that is, difficult to grow in a garden.
Whichever way you look, you can't help but think if the worst does come to the worst, Kent and his family will be in much better shape than the rest of us. As he puts it, once you get it, there's no going back.
It's very hard you can't wipe out knowledge or the information. You can't take it away. Once you know there isn't a Santa Claus, well, it's very hard to go back to a point where you believe in Santa Claus. Well, once you know that peak oil exists, and once you know that we're over-harvesting fish, once you know that, lots of ecological dilemmas, it's very hard to wipe that out of your consciousness. So that's, and you try little bits to change. And you move beyond the fact of, I'll probably save the world by recycling my plastic containers. It's going to take a lot more than that.
Catastrophic change, New Zealand is likely to be eyed up as the lucky country. After all, we have plenty of water, hydropower, food and heaps of space. We could be sustainable here. But we could also be seen as a tempting target by other countries less fortunate, and that could create a whole different set of problems.
China could annex New Zealand overnight. I mean, absolutely. It wouldn't even take an awful lot of their soldiers. Burma could take us over. Indonesia could take us over. Australia could decide to annex us for whatever reason. I know, it's a terrifying thought, isn't it? The Aussies in control. And we could very easily and quickly end up in a situation where survival is threatened and only the toughest and the strongest will survive.
Should we be scared, in your view?
Yes, actually, to some extent. We should certainly, I think, be worried. We should be concerned. We should be taking an intelligent, active interest in these questions and not trying to dismiss them as the lunatic ravings of an arrogant, posh git who's come to this country and thinks he knows everything.
For the moment anyway, it's a beautiful day in the New Zealand countryside. The sun's still shining. It's all calm down Darfield Way, but Robin Scott will tell you all that could change, and very quickly.
We all get on fine as long as there's 3 days' food in the shops. But when there isn't, it gets very savage very quickly. And the human being is quite a brutal animal when it's under pressure.
So what about stockpiling arms?
We haven't started stockpiling ammunition. I'm not sitting on a stash of bullets here, I assure you. But I can see at some point in the future, sadly, I may decide that I do need to build up make sure that I've got plenty of ammo and plenty of guns. I would hate to end up in that situation. I'm a peace-loving man. I'm not a violent person at all, never have been, never want to be. But like every other sensible father and parent, I'm willing to fight for my family if push comes to shove.